Okay, good evening, everyone. Let me welcome you all for the second session of Lead in the Transformation webinar organized by PIMA and PIM. Last time we had few technical issues and we could not actually connect with Mr. Ravi Edrisinghe, who was one of our most sought after panelists. So as Professor promised to everyone, we are coming back with the second one. And on behalf of PIM Alumni Executive Committee, let me welcome Mr. Janal Hewawasam to welcome the panel.
Thank you, Denzel. Good evening, everyone. This is the second webinar we are organizing, PIMA organizing together with PIM. We are going to start the webinar in a little while. The topic is shifting from survival to success, leading the transformation part 2. And you can watch this on live stream on our Facebook page, PIMA FB page. And panelists for today's panel discussion, I'll introduce Mr. Ravi Edrisinghe, Group CEO at GAC Group Sri Lanka. Second, Mr. Wasaba Jayasekara, Managing Director and CEO at Helis Chura Cluster. Then Mr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Executive Director and the Chief Marketing Officer at DMO, Diesel and Motor Engineering PLC. Then the moderator for the panel discussion today is the Director PIM and our patron, Professor Ajanta Dharmasiri. Professor, over to you and enjoy the session.
Thank you, Jalal. Thank you, Denzel, for the wonderful background work. And once again, we are meeting together for the part 2 based on the overwhelming response we got in part 1. And due to the whole heap of questions that we got from the wonderful participants, so we thought of having part 2. So today is again a special day for PIMA as well as to PIM because we showcase all PIM products. So in the 30 plus years of existence, having produced 300 plus CEOs, 3,000 plus senior managers, and 30,000 plus trained professionals one way or the other, we are very happy that we have today 3 eminent panelists who are all prestigious PIM panelists. So as a backdrop, let me interestingly share with you 4 numbers, 1188. So the first one, 1. The global economy will shrink by 1%. Or in other words, global economic growth will be reduced to 1% due to COVID-19. And ironically, Sri Lankan economy also will struggle
I think Professor's line got disconnected. He will connect it soon. He'll get in touch with us soon.
uh, 1.5 million in the government workforce and the remaining 6.5 million either in the private sector or in the self-employment sector. So the post-COVID-19 era will be an era where people-centered, people-specific, people issues will be coming to the forefront. So 118 and the final 8 is again a disturbing factor. There'll be at least $8 million US revenue drop from the expected earnings from Sri Lankan exports. So 8 million revenue drop. So 1188, just to spark the interest in terms of igniting the thought sharing. And again, as we always advocate, it is not just knowledge sharing per se. It is sharing some interesting insights with the view of having some practical orientation. So we have tested and proven 3 business leaders and would share their practical insights with an idea of assisting all the wonderful participants today, and they will get inspired at least to pick 1 or 2 ideas for them to go and implement. So that is the backdrop. So let me begin by turning to Mr. Ravi Edirisinghe, my good friend. Ironically, we did MBA together. So Ravi comes from a veteran financial background, and now he is a CEO of a leading logistical conglomerate. So Ravi would give us a picture of how the financial outlook in the post-COVID-19 pandemic with some sense of business analytics. So let me invite Ravi to have the perspective from finance and business analytics point of view. Over to Ravi.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for that introduction and the lead. And first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to join this webinar, which I think is a very important topic. I mean, yeah, from a financial perspective, we all know this is like a crisis. I think we've heard about crisis in the past. We have heard about the global financial crisis which happened in the US, which was a hot topic in our PIM lectures too. But I don't think Sri Lanka has ever faced a crisis, ever. We had a 30-year war, and then there was like a mini crisis with the bombings of April 21st. But I think Sri Lanka has never faced a crisis of this magnitude. So this is all new, and we are like on uncharted territory. So different people, different leaders follow different standpoints, guidelines. Some try to follow the big boys like the Jack Ma's of the world and, Jeff Bezos of the world, but some try to find their own little ways of running their own companies. So I think whichever way it goes, it is extremely important that as the leaders, whether you run a big company or whether you run a small department with 3 people, that you set your expectations right. We all know that the budgets we set in the beginning of the year or at the end of last year is no longer valid because the whole business environment is now completely changed. So if someone is still following the budgets which they prepared 6 months ago, I think then they are like kind of not running the company in the best of its spirits. So it's extremely important that a reforecast is done with a plan of recovery and then a plan of success. And then a new budget is quickly finalized. And that budget or the reforecast, we call it, need to be shared with everybody concerned. The shareholders to the bankers to the employees to everybody. So then everybody is well aware of what are the changes, what were we aiming at 6 months back, what are we aiming at today, and when to celebrate. Now let me give a simple example. Let's say a company has planned for like a ₹1 billion budget profit. And then they set all their KPIs, expectations for ₹1 billion. But after this, let's say we refocus the company for like a break-even. So from ₹1 billion, we come to break-even. And if we really hit that break-even, we should celebrate. We should celebrate. So everybody should be very clear of where we are heading and what is expected. So a leader should spend a lot of time at this moment on communicating with different people on where we were heading, where we are heading now, when to celebrate, when not to celebrate, what are the new expectations, what are the new KPIs. So I think this is where the communication skills of a leader comes to the absolute, help. And from a financial perspective, it's extremely important to refocus the business. So you need to use all your financial might and financial knowledge to understand what will happen to the business in the next month, next quarter, and next year. And I think if we try to look beyond 1 year, again, it's not a practical situation because we never know what will crop up the next year. And then maintain transparency among all stakeholders, like we've said, so everybody knows when to celebrate, when not to celebrate, when to get scared, and probably when not to get scared. In doing so, I feel that cost rationalization and revenue management is key. I think part of the revenue management is beyond the control of the company because certain revenue generating lines probably would now be null and void. I mean, in the company I work for also, there are certain lines which are not working because of the government regulations and the blockages and so on. So you need to understand your revenue lines in a more realistic manner, and then you need to match your costs with revenue. Very simple, like a simple Kade Mudalali type of approach. And then we call it the cost rationalization. Some call it cost cutting, but actually rationalization is a better word because by rationalizing the cost, you are keeping your costs at a very exciting level in case when you want to completely restart the business, your structures are ready. Now, some companies overdo this. Some companies try to cut cost to the bone, absolute bone. And then when opportunities arise, they don't have the people, nor the structures, nor the systems to restart the business or seize the new opportunity. So it's very important as a CEO for you to understand, like in your cost rationalizing program, you need to understand when to stop. Some leaders don't know when to stop. They think cutting cost is like the best remedy to at this moment. So you need to be mindful. So how do we know what is the best level? Quite parallel to the cost rationalization exercise, there has to be a scenario planning exercise. I think if there are people in the audience who have gone through our PIM lectures, we've spent a lot of time in our business analytics session trying to do scenario planning and how scenarios work, different scenarios, the simple 2x2 becomes 4x4 and so on. So if there are people who followed this course, they know what we're talking about. So we need to understand different scenarios of the business. Maybe at least at this point of time, maybe about 3-4 realistic scenarios. And we need to have cost bases for these 3 or 4 realistic scenarios and put probabilities to it. And we will probably say, yeah, okay, 60% of the time scenario 1 would happen. So let's be ready for that. But 30% of the time, the scenario 2 will be happen. So in case if the scenario 2 happens, which is better than what we expected, we need staff, we need people, we need equipment, we need assets, we need the bandwidth to do this. So if you cut your cost right down to scenario 1, and if scenario 2 happens, you might give that opportunity to a competitor because your competitor might do it faster than you. So you need to be extremely careful. This is where leaders will have to spend a lot of their time thinking on what are the scenarios, what are their probabilities, so at what level we cut our costs. Like a simple example. I mean, you don't have to be Bill Gates to do this, right? I mean, if you take our dollar to rupee ratio, if you simply do an analysis to see what keeps the Sri Lankan rupee strong, it's 3 things. One is the foreign remittances coming from the people who work abroad. Second is the exports remittances. And the third is the tourism. And we all know in the next 6 months to 1 year, all 3 are going to suffer because people who worked in South Korea, Italy, Iran are all here now, or majority of it. And then apparel industry will take time to restart, and then tourism will take minimal 6 months. So we all know that the 3 main revenue generating to keep the Sri Lankan rupee strong is going to be weaker. So as a result, Sri Lankan rupee will only go one way. So you need to plan a scenario if you are having like huge debts of dollars, or if you have like huge commitments in dollars. You need to have guards for either forward bookings or conversions or hedgings or money market hedgings. You need to be ready for it. And earlier you plan for it, better deals you get. Now, I know when you speak to a bank on Monday, I got 1 rate, but the same bank I spoke to on Friday, I got like 3 rupees negative. So faster you identify, faster you act on it, you will get better results. So you need to be agile, you need to be realistic, you need to refocus your business, and you need to rationalize your cost. And then finally, you need to understand opportunity. Now, these days, there are so many emails and webinars and WhatsApp messages floating around the new opportunities post-COVID. There are so many things floating around. But you need to be mindful of doing this. If I just kind of give my personal opinion, this is like not representing an organization or so. A lot of people are saying post-COVID online shopping, e-entertainment, and virtual tourism will take off, right? In my opinion, these three will not take off. I think 3 months after the virus is gone, people have short memories. They will still want to go to the Colombo City Center or One Golf Face and have a good time than doing their online shopping. So I think moment that fear of virus goes off, people will go back to some of the normal behaviors. And I don't think those industries will take off. So if somebody is thinking of like, okay, let's invest 10 million rupees on an online shopping platform, I don't think it's realistic. So you need to make those judgment calls because people have very short memories. April 21st bombing, I mean, 3 months later, we were all back to our usuals. But I think two things will take off. So it's worthwhile investing money on that. Home working will take off because by force we had to home work in the last 45 days. But actually that's quite effective, quite good. So we need to see the positives of it and see how we can take this to a different platform. Everybody would love it. So I think that even after the fear of virus goes off, home working will work and will stay. So if you are to invest a little bit of money on a home working platform, I think that's real true cost rationalization for me. E-learning. A lot of institutes have painfully realized over time that e-learning is a possibility and it is not as bad as you thought it was. Universities around the world, to schools, to even Montessori's for that matter. I've seen like certain teachers doing Montessori poems or e-learning to children. So I think that will stay. Even after the virus is, the fear goes, those two will stay. So likewise, you need to understand what will stay and what will not stay. Tough call. And you need to have the right cost investments for it. So very simple things to conclude. One is like to be transparent, to be realistic, and reforecast your business, right? By now, if you have not reforecasted your business or what's not going to happen in the next 3 months, I think you have failed. Reforecast your business, set your expectations right, be transparent, rationalize the cost, don't overdo it. Manage your company based on cash, do scenario planning, and identify what will stay and what will not stay. Invest money on what will stay and don't just chase on what will not stay. So this is like my kind of viewpoints on this whole topic, Professor.
Thank you, Ravi. I think it's very interesting to hear from a person like you with such a variety of thought-provoking ideas. So I like the concept of cost rationalization, not just mere cost cutting. And also the way you mentioned about celebrating together as a collective community, and then communicate. The keyword in getting connecting with the key people in a crisis, that is extremely important. So with that very interesting thought sharing, let me move to another prestigious PIM product, to Mr. Vasamba. So Vasamba was a learning partner, and we use the term learning partnering at PIM. So it is not student-teacher distance that we have, it's more interactive, collectively learning together. So Vasamba, from your point of view, coming from a manufacturing and import kind of a backdrop, how would you look at the current and the future, the survival and the success in transforming businesses? What do you, Vasamba?
Thanks, Professor, for having me. Thank you very much, Pima and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me. I would like to start with a simple model I have been kind of working with. Maybe with your permission, I'll just go through with a little bit of that along with the practical examples for next 4 to 5 minutes, and then probably we can go on. If you can load it, then right. Okay. This is basically okay. It's a bit colorful, of course. Used green and amber and red because this is basically the temperature monitoring system at the moment, because I mean self and also the businesses are subject to. And the context, if you really see, the context is basically challenged at the moment. This is basically the context. Context is, I mean, we traditionally talk about the pesticide factors and so on, environmental factors, ecological factors, and social factors and so on. Now we can see these factors are challenging our lives and challenging our businesses. So what does that mean? That means it affects our financial ability of the company, right? For example, we have been talking about budgets, yes, as Ravi mentioned also. I mean, generally when we start in a financial year, we start with a very positive note. Maybe 1st April, we have budgets, we have the revenues, we have the GPs, and we have the cost and the NP. Unfortunately, this time when we start, we have zero revenues. We have negative GP. We have cost coming from selling and distribution, administration, and we have negative NP. And we really cannot action. We cannot action, but our business is functioning. Our business is functioning in a negative manner. So you can see our financial aspect is under fire, which means that gives pressure on our resources. If you really see internal environment, this is our internal environment. If you really see, our strategic resources are under fire. So which means our fund base, our capital, our ability to raise money is getting depleted. So because of this situation. So when this happens to a business, when this happens to a manufacturing or any company, I mean, you get to trigger most of the areas like your leadership style, to the strategy, to the internal system structures, and staff. For example, I mean, you saw, I mean, in recent times, there were a lot of communication with regard to the staff and with regard to the new strategies. I mean, how to get out from this issue and so on and so forth. So this depleting strategic resources, depleting funds, depleting accumulated funds in your balance sheet, in your business, trigger some of these actions. So when you see that, it happens to you, and also when you look out, it happens to your competition as well. This is your competition. Competition is also under fire. Your traditional competition yesterday, post Friday the 13th March, I mean, we may not be the competition when we start business, maybe in May. So which means there is your substitutes, your suppliers, your customers. So you got to understand what is really happening to your suppliers, what is really happening to your customers, and so on. So because that is important to continue with your business. And also the competition you had, I mean, you can see all of a sudden we are locked down. Our company is locked down. Same way, our competition is also locked down. So now in a situation like this, should we wait or should we do something? So now we have been, this is basically our 1.5 months into lockdown, into curfew and so on. So what exactly we can do as a business people is we got to understand. So my point is basically, I'm trying to bring out the innovation here. I mean, you got to do something. Either you have to choose two choices, either to continue with the same way or to continue with a different way. So whether in terms of your product side, it can be in terms of your process side, it can be in terms of your marketing point of view or market perspectives. It can be within your organization. So you got to do whether you want to do a change in the organization to meet the new competition, because your new competition will come back here again, once you do things, so you really have to react to the new competition. So in order to react to the new competition, you got to do certain things. While at home, maybe in certain factories, of course, for example, in my area, of course, certain factories, certain offices, because we are into essential services, so we are working, and also we are also trying to work out, for example, under the technical or the process innovation or the product innovation, we are trying to bring down new products, which is COVID related. I mean, there are so much of products available. For example, it can be PPE types of products, or it can be disinfectors, to the thermal cameras, to the gloves, there are so many. There are food, the pharmaceuticals. There are a range of products available, which means we have to work on. So in addition, I mean, lots of other companies basically have no option sometimes. They just, I mean, they are locked down, their individuals, their staff members also locked down and just waiting. So my invitation is, without waiting, you got to think what exactly you can do, what exactly you can change in your organization. You have to be a different person when you come back. Presume that we start on 11th May or so, you have to come back as a different individual, because your business, your challenges, your competition will be different. If you come that way, I mean, you really can you can work out your balance scorecard again, because at this moment the scorecard is imbalanced. At this moment the scorecard is imbalanced because your financial perspective, from the financial perspectives, from the funding point of view, you are eroding your capabilities. You are basically weakening your resources, so which means the balance scorecard is imbalanced at the moment. So you got to balance it. So in order to balance it, you got to do homework. It can be new in terms of new technologies, it can be in terms of new products, it can be new in terms of new ways of doing business, and so on. So that's basically a kind of perspective. I actually wanted to say this is C19. This is, I mean, this is not COVID-19, but I mean, context related to 19 variables. I was trying to kind of fathom the whole thing in one perspective, Professor. So that's basically kind of a theoretical approach to the problem I see. You really got to, as professionals, as PIMA members, or maybe the students who are kind of learning this aspect, I think you really got to study what exactly you really have to rethink, refresh, reflect to move when you start, when you get back to your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasama, for that interesting C19 model. And talking about models, the first person come to my mind is my mentor, late Professor Udita Liyanagi. And we continue that rich tradition at PI. And he mentioned very clearly the opportunity-seeking behavior, sensing an opportunity, sizing an opportunity, and seizing an opportunity. Sense, size, and seize. And I think the way you mentioned about the power of innovation, and the post-COVID-19 era has to be an innovative era where innovation is the key. And as Ravi already mentioned, sometimes your imaginative ideas might not really be workable. So you have to put it into the real test of acceptance. So that's where the opportunity-seeking behavior becomes very, very important. So it is, I would firmly believe that sometimes the models can be a little complex, but we need concrete applications. A model is as good as its application. So there are lots of practical insights from C19. You get lots of aspects coming out. And perhaps for me, the most critical inspiration is to make the balance scorecard really balanced, to ensure that you have financial, customer, process, and people perspectives are well connected, well integrated, and gearing to give the expected results. Interesting. So let me now turn to my friend Asanga. Ironically, two of us did MBA together. So out of the three panelists, at least three of us were together in the same batch. That's we did not plan that way, but it happened that way. So Asanga comes from a wide array of expertise, from local and international exposure at Unilever, and right now with the Demo and Hema's involvements. So he is the sought after marketing resource person at PIM, and also strategy resource person at PIM. So we do strategy together. So Asanga, with your marketing perspective, how do you look at current and future, survival to success, transformation of the process, leading the transformation from a marketing point of view, a strategic point of view. Asanka.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Pima. I know lots of PIM alumni is joined today. And of course, it's an honor always to talk to the PIM alumni. So you heard from my colleagues, and there's no better person to talk about this than Ravi and Professor and Vasabha. So we are going through some very tough times. And make no mistake, the times ahead of us are going to be tougher. Staying at home, lockdown, if you think that this is tough, when we start work and the months, the years to come, at least in the short to medium term, is going to be tougher. There's no mistake about it. But Sri Lankans, we are very resilient. We have shown that over a long period of time, be it the war, be it tsunami, but it has never been as difficult as it is today. So this is probably the toughest time, Professor Ravi, Vasabha, in our lives. But of course, this is the time where leaders, the business leaders, need to rise. They have to be brave, they have to be confident and rise. So it's a inescapable reality, I would like to call it. Facing this tough time into the future, we can't shy away from that. We have to face it, we have to survive, and we need to rise. So a lot of discussion happened about the economic perspective, manufacturing side, and so on. So I'm going to focus a little bit about the consumer and the customer. For any business, the business thrives, or the revenue comes to the business only by creating value to your consumer or to the customer. Without customers, there's no business. Of course, you can have great manufacturing plants, great officers, everything, but you need to have customers. And customers need to buy your products. Customers need to consume your products. Customers need to repeat buying your product. If these things don't happen, then there's no business. So we call it in marketing the moments of truth. When the consumer is communicated, when the consumer consumes the product, and the consumer seeks after sales or convenience. Look at all three. All three have changed drastically. Digital disruption have come in a big way. People who didn't even think about getting any communication out of digital media are now glued to all sorts of social media modes of communication. Online marketing, online e-commerce, even product comparisons, even education. PIM, at the last faculty meeting, we discussed about how best we can do online lecturing. So the whole moments of truth where the consumer comes in contact with the brands have changed, or will change, and will continue to change. So in this situation, what worked for us in the past, of course, we have learned a lot, and we continue to need to learn, but we need to look at things differently. As Ravi said, first of all, in the short term, it's about survival. There's no mistake about it. You have to optimize your cost. You have to look at the way you do business. You have to survive. If you survive this period, that is a good victory to start with. But no company can go into the future by mere survival. You need to grow. So growth has to happen. Growth has to happen in a profitable way. And Professor and I, when we teach strategy, we always say, if you think what you do today, you do better tomorrow, you can get good profits in the future. That is not right. You need to have a strategy. Doing things better, you're paid for that. That is what we call operational effectiveness. What is required is to do things differently. Either do the thing that you're doing differently, or do different things. You have to find ways to do different things, or to do the way you're doing things differently. To me, the game starts with looking at the customer. The customer has to be the focal point. create value to the customer, customer will create value to the organization in turn. We have to look at the customer. You have to retain our current customers. Customers have to be treated like gold. You have to protect them, because customers are going to be under severe stress because of the economic situation in the country, the world, what we are going through, uncertainty in life. So the customer will have to be very well protected. Give more value to the customer. That's the only way you can survive. That's your existing customers. Professor spoke about opportunities. We as leaders must look for opportunities. Opportunities to bring in new customers. What are those ways that we can get new customers, create new value to our customers? So the game is in creating value. Ravi spoke about cash. Doing business the way we have done in the past for profits, short-term profits or profits in the P&L is not going to help. You need to generate cash. Cash is the mantra, the new mantra in business. A lot of us in business love to talk and strategize and debate and so on. But that is not going to work. For us, the main thing, the most important thing for us now is to make sure that we execute the plans, get closer as much as possible, as close as possible to our customers, and execute our plans. Finally, it's all about leadership. It's all about leadership. The leadership that we provide to our businesses, the reach we give our businesses in looking for new ways to add value to our customers, bringing new customers in, new consumption moments, new communication moments, new convenience moments, bringing relevance to everything that we do. Not relevance to the organization, not relevance inside the company, relevance to the customer. And it's all about using our resources in a way we get the maximum return on investment. If we don't do it as leaders of business, there's no one else to do it. This is the time for us to rise. We have learned a lot in our PIM journey. We have got a lot of confidence to do things differently. This is the time to put all our knowledge, all our experience into practice. I remember when we were working in Unilever or in any other country, we always think that we have to give our best. How do we give our best? Bring the best out of you. All the knowledge, all the experience that you have to unleash it. This is the time. Thanks, Professor.
Okay, Asak, it's very interesting. Another very key dimension coming out, customer. Customer is the key. And then we talk about internal customers and external customers as well. Here the main thing is, and again, you mentioned very correctly, the focus on cash. So that's important in order to have right strategy. And I fully agree with you. Strategy is all about being different. I mean, being better can be different things to different people. It's all about being different. How can we be different? So that's where we need to have a soul searching, as you rightly said, as leaders. So this is the testing time for leadership, the right leaders at the right place in producing right results in the right manner. So with that, let's conclude the round one, and in round two, in round two, what we are going to do is to probe further based on the initial thought sharing by the three panelists. So let me first turn to Ravi Edrisinghe. And you mentioned very clearly about the scenario planning, and you have to have the cost rationalization in order to exploit the given opportunities. And Ravi, I know there are lots of struggling SMEs right now, small and medium scale enterprises, who contribute to around 52% of the Sri Lankan economy. So if they seek your advice, so tell me, what are the top 3 advices that you could give to a struggling, reeling SME in Sri Lanka?
It's like this. I mean, the general phenomena of the business is that the fundamental financial model, if you look at, is that you invest money in a business, and if the business makes profits, you take dividends out. That's very clear now. And that's the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee. No matter what the profit of the company, an employee gets a salary, maybe a bonus. But if the profit is good, the owner or the investors are going to get very fat dividends or returns. So if somebody has been enjoying this for a long time with good dividends, the reversal also had to happen. At tough times, you need to reinvest money in the business. So the owners who took dividends and the going is good should be mentally prepared to introduce capital back into the business. Profits are taken out, at the same time losses are financed. These are fundamental global phenomena. So a SME owner, most probably like a privately held equity, should be mentally ready to do this. You should not be telling everyone, look, I have lost money, now I have no means of running the business. First of all, you have to have your mentality correct. Good times you took profits out, bad times you are going to put money back into the organization. And then you need to have your business model reworked, reforecast, and then using scenario planning, you need to understand what are the most likely futures which could happen. Let me give you a simple example. Now, let's say if you are like a SME into apparel exports. So you can figure out, okay, what will happen to the apparel demand, who will buy from you, who will not buy from you. So in the next 6 months to 1 year, what would be the quantities which I will get, and whom will buy from me. And that also can be done through very clear engagement with the customer or research. Now, if I probe on the same example, what is being researched at the moment is that post-COVID purchases of apparel would be actually better. People would, moment they get time to get out on the streets, they will go and buy apparels like crazy to get out of this frustration. Because people are so frustrated and depressed. One way of getting out of that depression is to buy a nice t-shirt or like a nice, pair of jeans or whatever, and you will reward yourself by going for the better brands. You are wearing like a normal jean, you will this time go and buy like a good Levi. So you need to understand what could happen to the business, and you need to invest money. So that's where your scenario planning could be important. And that's why your cost cutting need not be overdone and overworked. Because the moment the engine starts working on, you need to be ready. I just see a question in the Zoom group. One of the participants they have said that he's working in the ticketing and travel management industry. As you know, the industry is dead and gone. Should we move into a different business? I would say no. Actually, if you can survive for 3 to 6 months, the travel industry is going to come back to some amazing heights because this frustration of people. So again, one of the therapies would be to travel, and people would be willing to travel. I'll give you an example, like a very simple example. Like after April 21st, a lot of people thought Sri Lanka will take 1 year to recover in the travel and tourism industry. But we got 80% of the hotels filled up 3 months later. So holding on, reinvesting money back into the business, sometimes the profits you took out in the past, you need to bring it back. Do scenarios, do cost rationalizations, and thinking positive could be at this moment of time the advice for SMEs. The game is not over. You need to hang on.
Thank you, Ravi. So let's move to Vasant. Picking from what you shared, that interesting C19 model, Vasant, if someone has to implement, so what is the starting point? What could be the first critical step in focusing on innovation? So what is your advice? Yes, Vasamba, you have to unmute.
Under the current context, we really have to see where you are in the context. For example, there are businesses which are directly impacted with COVID. For example, if your customers are impacted, your suppliers are impacted, if your employees are impacted, that's basically the set which is very vulnerable. Okay, the travel example can be one of that, right? So that's one set. And the other set is basically certain businesses are restricted because of the regulations or maybe the health advisory, right? Certain businesses, I mean, they are not directly impacted with the COVID, right? But they are unable to perform because of the requirements and the regulations and the health standards. And the number three is basically, this is, I think, something special to Sri Lanka because of the import restrictions. Now, we have certain import restrictions in the country, right? Certain items are temporarily suspended. Certain items are basically you have to get import under certain credit terms. So there are basically, if you really see if you analyze the problem, there are three different areas of concern. So basically, if you really see the most difficult thing to get out is basically the industries, the companies which are directly impacted with the COVID. Maybe it can be the travel industry, for example. It can be the garments industry, for example. Of course, I mean, for garments, I can see there are lots of alternatives coming in. But as I think Ravi mentioned, for the travel and the hotels is basically we really have to cut cost, or rather manage cost and survive for next few months. And also for the garment industries, it's a balancing act. You really have to manage cost, you have to rationalize your cost, and also try and diversify, I mean, for PPE or maybe for certain other areas where you can sell. And maybe for the import companies, for example, import companies which certain items are restricted for imports under the current circumstances, you really have to see, I mean, what is possible from the local value addition to contribute to the country, to contribute to the economy and contribute to the people, or maybe get on with something products from other products where you really have no restrictions at this moment, which is in line with your portfolio, or maybe it can be an incremental change, or maybe it can be a radical change to your business model. So it's basically, it is difficult to say one formula for formula in general, but it is company specific, context specific, and industry specific, Professor.
Thank you. I think that gives us some insight how to approach when you need to move beyond in terms of facing the crisis. So now let me turn back to Asanka. Asanka, there are a couple of questions. We'll take them specifically later. For the time being, your advice to the brand manager. Some might be dealing with premium brands. Some might be dealing with others. So what's your advice for the brand manager? So how would they kind of approach the current crisis?
Because I think the most important thing we need to understand is that the game is not lost. The war is not lost. It's of course a setback, and we need to take account of where we are today. And as I said, the consumer is going to change. The way the consumer is to be reached, the way the consumer is going to value products, the way the consumer is going to consume the portfolio, all those things will change. So we need to buy. I mean, if you look at the SMEs that are prevalent in Sri Lanka, the SMEs have got probably one of the best opportunities to look at different ways of doing marketing. Look at Sri Lanka. We always try and identify a few brands that in Sri Lanka that are strong, which can go to the global market. Sad to say, we don't have many. So this is an opportunity for the brand managers or the marketing community or people who lead teams to come forward and say, oh, this is an opportunity for us to look at import substitution. Those brands that are expensive or probably in the short term not allowed to be imported. These are opportunities for us to come in and build propositions that create value to the customers. It all starts with the customer. If we understand what this new customer psyche that is going to be, then we will be able to tailor make our offerings. Now, the starting point should be to go deep into the life of the customer. If we try to do marketing from our companies, from our comfort zones, thinking about what was successful in the past, of course, we are going to have a very tough time. What is required is to be, as I said, as close as possible to the customer, to our consumer. Understand the pain points, what we call the insights from the consumer's point of view. The e-commerce platform, I agree with Ravi, might not be very relevant to the consumer after some time. Of course, during this period where social distancing is prevalent and very important, e-commerce would be important. But digital media to communicate to the customer is going to remain. Digital media where the customer is going to use to compare, contrast, look for value is going to remain. So these are opportunities for brand managers to think. So it's all about, as I said before, thinking differently. Now, to think differently, you need to get out there. You need to get out there and understand what is value to the customer. Think about all of us. What is value to us is very different to what was value to us about a month ago. All what we need to do is to understand this. If we understand this, we can play a huge role in taking our businesses to the next level. If we don't, of course, we will really, really regret.
Interesting. Understanding, a comprehensive understanding about the value. What is the value that we are going to create for our customers and to our stakeholders? All right. So with that, let me come to the final segment, which is the Q&A segment. And thank you very much. In fact, there are lots of questions coming up. So let me start with the very first one, where I would like to direct it to Ravi, where they talk about, the question is, in order to maintain the working capital, is it recommended to cut down marketing or promotional budgets? First Ravi, and then others can chip in if they need to add something. Yes, Ravi. Ravi, you have to unmute. Yes.
Well, first of all, let me correct that question from a technical standpoint. Marketing and promotion budget is not part of your working capital. Your working capital is like your day-to-day running and managing your debtors, creditors, and stocks.
Yes.
But if you look at a business from a more holistic perspective, people might understand that the whole cash flow is working capital. I can understand where the question is coming from. The simple answer is no. Actually, we've been very critical, even at PIM in our classes, that we were very critical of certain leaders during crisis times. There are two hot targets for them to cut cost. Hot targets. Number one, training budget. Number two, promotions budget. Why do they do that? Because when you do cut either training or promotions, the repercussions will not be immediate. You might cut a promotions budget. I'm sure Asanga is the expert there. You might not see the repercussions of it next month or the month after. You will see the danger 1 year later, because by then your competitor has gained the brand loyalty of the customer. Similarly, training. If you didn't train your people today, you will not feel it tomorrow or the next month, but you will feel it maybe 1 year later. So you should never do that. You should never do that. You should maintain your training, your promotions, budgets. And that's where, like I said earlier, if the need be, the owners of the business must bring in fresh capital into the business. Just like they took dividends out, they need to finance their losses.
Interesting. So can I ask Asanga to have a connection to that and to put your views on it?
I think I agree with what Ravi is saying. the last thing you can cut, of course, the first thing you would want to cut is marketing and training, because you think that nothing will happen in the current financial year. I have committed for a budget for the year. I can deliver the budget, but it's going to haunt you. It's going to come behind you. And we have seen in many companies where marketing budgets or training budgets have been pruned, and how it has impacted the business. But I want to make a small point on building on what Ravi said. This is the time for marketing, people in marketing, to look at what we call return on marketing investment. Return on marketing investment, every rupee, every dollar that you put into marketing, this is the time where you need a higher return. Of course, marketing money cannot be just put in and say, of course, we can't quantify the benefits. Everything can be quantified. Every dollar, every rupee that you put into promotion or for advertising for that matter, it has to give a return. That return need not be in 1 year, but a return has to be there. Now, in tough times, leaders need to ask for this return. Marketing people or brand managers cannot take it for granted and say, of course, you can't touch my budget. No, you can't say that. Budgets can be cut. Budgets can be reduced. You have to justify every marketing investment. So we call it in Unilever and all these people who have joined from multinationals, they have a very strict return on marketing and trade investment, ROMT. If you focus on return on marketing and trade investment and have a sharp focus on that, you will get better results in tough times.
Interesting. ROMTI, that's a new critical criteria in time to come. So let me turn to Vasamba now. There's another question about the online marketing opportunities, so online trade opportunities. I agree with what you said. Many countries are already doing the activities with online. Also, European countries have introduced new strategy called make or break. Do you think this strategy can be applicable to our country? Make or break strategy in Europe. I don't know what the question really means. So the idea is, yes, Vasamba.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I think making or breaking, of course, I'm not very sure, but what I can tell you is online is a very prominent thing. Yes, definitely we use a lot of online applications, online strategies for our marketing and also for training. Actually, I would like to add to what Ravi and Asanga were talking about, the training and the promotions also. For example, we have been, whole of last 1.5 months, we have been doing a lot of training actually. We have the training is actually, we have categorized training into 2 areas. One is application product specific training. For example, if you deal with a new product with a customer, for example, I mean, we have one-to-one or one-to-many application product process specific training. We don't compromise on that, and we do. And actually it is online because I mean, the social distancing is such that you, I mean, if you want to travel, you can't travel. So we have to find ways to mitigate this. So that's basically one area we will not compromise. We are not compromising. So we use online mechanism extensively. But of course, when it comes to general training, general capability training of staff, for example, yes, I mean, because when we have challenges in our cash flows, when we have challenges in our business right now, we tend to postpone such things. Of course, we may, I mean, it is not a welcoming thing, but I mean, to sustain, many people talk about sustenance in this era. So in order to sustain, we do such things also. Marketing, when it comes to marketing, yes, we actually extensively use online, and we have reached, because we have actually in these last couple of months, we have been getting new principles to our portfolio, new products to our portfolio, and we have been communicating. And certain, actually, the inquiries we got are enormous, actually. Some 1,000 odd inquiries for a particular product we got under these circumstances. So I think online mechanism is very useful. I think you really can work on it, because we have been spending a lot of things on various other means as well. But I think this is the time where we have to manage cost and also effectively use the available funds for the rich. So one important thing is probably, I mean, the reach, right? You have to reach, you have to be in touch with your customer, you have to be in touch with your supplier continuously. This is the time, I mean, on a daily basis, at least you must take a call, take a Zoom call or take a WhatsApp call and be in touch with your customer, be in touch with your overseas supplier, because this is the moment you really have to be close to suppliers and customers. We do on a daily basis, I mean, because thanks to one side of the good thing of this is basically we tend to forget now what is Saturday, what is Sunday, what is May Day, right? We do not know what is a holiday and what is a working day. So on a daily basis, we engage with our customers, with our suppliers. So that, I think that's an important thing you have to do in this situation.
Okay, thank you. So may I turn back to Ravi? There's a question, Ravi. Any comment about the stock market being kept closed? Is it good or bad? You have to unmute your mic.
Sorry again. Well, I think that's a good policy adopted by the government, because there is something called herd buying and panic buying, or herd selling and panic selling.
Okay.
So when you hit that panic button, sometimes you don't know what you're doing. So you might sell a fundamentally strong stock because either you are depressed, or you are panicked, or your best friend is also selling that stock. So in order to sometimes stop this kind of herd negative behavior, time to time, stock markets in the world have temporarily halted. We know the so-called the best stock market in the world, the Wall Street, was halted 3 times on 6th of March, if I can remember, 3 times for 20 minutes, just to calm people down. So they have 20 minutes to think about, okay, what did I do last half an hour? Was it rational or not? So they give people time to think. I think it's a very good initiative. Until people come to their normal business thinking and normal mentality, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Thank you. So let me turn to Mr. Asangaranasinghe for the next question that was posted. As a medium-scale manufacturer, most of our raw materials are imported from international markets. On the other end, most of our foreign buyers have put on hold to the orders. So you are getting squeezed from both ends. So what are your suggestions to this? Anyway, we can ask Vasant also to contribute after your answer.
It's a very tough challenge when you're importing, when your imports are curtailed or restricted, and you don't have customers. Also, you're actually in a very difficult situation. So the only advice I can give is you need to wither the short term, and somehow, as Ravi said, survive in the short term, because everything is going to pass. Even this is going to pass. So strong companies will show character, show bravery, and wither this. And once that this period is over, of course, you need to look for opportunities. If your imports are restricted, then what are the possibilities of sourcing locally? If your customers are no longer there, what are the other opportunities? Now, for example, our apparel industry is badly impacted these days. But in the short term, our apparel industry is looking for opportunities in the health sector. But that's, of course, a short-term opportunity. But as Ravi said, I think if once we are out of this, people are really going to go back into brands. There's make no mistake about it. What people have missed. A lot of people ask me, this e-commerce, will people continue to buy online? I don't think so. People are craving to go out to their shops. People are craving to go out and buy the brands. And so stronger the brand, more likely you will survive and you will do very well. So this is the time for us to really strategize, look for opportunities. It's all about looking for opportunities. But of course, while you do that, you need to survive. Survival comes by protecting your cash and managing your cost structure.
Thanks. Can Vasamba put your 2 cents worth into it with your addition?
I think I touched on this subject a little bit, but I think that's a challenging time for most of the import companies. Where they bring down consumer durables, for example. There are so many restrictions, and also companies who are into interior decorations, and so many, items are temporarily suspended. I think, as Sangha said, we have to find alternatives from one side, and other side, we have to kind of retain our status quo and somehow survive in this situation. And largely, I think this, because this is non-COVID related, right? This is largely, this is actually outcome of this whole thing, one of the outcomes. So you got to understand this is, nothing to do with COVID. So basically, from internal value addition point of view, you really got to do many things, and you really have to activate your exports. You really have to get your foreign exchange coming into the country and reduce the trade deficit. So once that is done, only this will be, corrected in a permanent basis. So you really have to get back to work, right? Add value, right? Tune your factories, tune your officers. You really have to work on it. When the whole things, that is basically the starting point. For example, we started with the essential service, and then we started with the export-oriented businesses, and then other export-oriented businesses will also come into place, and then the other local manufacturing and local distribution and local operations will begin, and then when the total cycle starts working, I think the import restrictions, everything also will be eased over time. We hope and pray it will happen very quickly.
Okay. I think we didn't realize that 1 hour has already gone, and we come to the final few minutes. So I would go around asking each panelist like a 1 sentence top advice, key advice, the key thing that you would like to tell the panelists, the surviving business leaders in the audience. So surviving entrepreneurs, surviving SME owners in the audience. So what is your 1 sentence advice, starting from Ravi, summing up all what you said?
Be positive. Be positive. It's not going to be as bad as you think. Let me support that with an example. Yesterday, the New Zealand Prime Minister allowed its citizens to go surfing and rock climbing. So who would ever thought that New Zealand will open up and allow its citizens to do this early? So imagine the rock climbing equipment companies and the surfing equipment companies, if they have gone into hibernation, they would not have been able to seize this opportunity to sell their products. So be positive. It's not going to be bad as you think. Be resilient.
Thank you. Be positive, stay positive, act positive. Thank you. Asanga, what's your 1 final piece of advice?
I think for me, this is the time for us to really get back to our basics. Look for opportunities, as you said. Opportunities are out there. Opportunities are going to come. New opportunities are going to come. And suddenly when they come, if you're not prepared, you will miss it. So we need to, this is a time for us to get back to basics and look for opportunities, get as close as possible to the customer. And as Ravi said, this is going to pass. Make no mistake. Who thought the war will end in this country? Who thought we will come out of this tsunami? Who thought we will come this quickly out of the very sad Easter Sunday attacks? And this will pass. And obviously, we need to be prepared for new opportunities by being close to our customers.
And I like the way I'll add 1 thing to that. Be brilliant on basics. That's what we need to do. And final word from Vasamba, what's your 1 sentence advice?
Yeah, Professor, from my side, I think my invitation to ladies and gentlemen is to bring at least 1 change to the business, because you have been spending a lot of time with your family and at lockdown at home. After 2 months, when we start, bring at least 1 change to the organization you work. If you bring 1 change, if you have 100 people in your organization, you have 100 things to do. So 100 new things to do. So that my invitation is, I mean, we have to be resilient. In order to be resilient, I invite everybody to change and move forward. Thank you.
So change is the only permanent thing in the whole world. So we got to change for better, change for doing things differently. So thank you, my fellow panelists. It was a wonderful experience in working with you, in collaborating with you. And this proves the point that we have done something worthwhile as the nation's management mentor. That's the way we would like to identify PIM. And with the nation's thought leaders, that's PIM alumni, we are trying to do something meaningfully for the betterment of our country. And we have to show that we are in the business of breeding the right leaders. So we are leader breeders with global reach and local roots. So that's what we are trying to do. So this is not the end of our webinar series. We will continue by getting more people. There was a comment from one PIM alumni member that why only males? So there's no such gender bias. We'll get more diversity time to come. So we'll have part 3 with more feminine presence, I would say. So we would continue with more insights coming and with sense of practicality involved. And the whole idea is to help in order to ensure that we are bouncing back. And as we say, tough times never last, but tough people do. And when the going gets tough, tough gets going. And let's all stay together, let's work together, let's collaborate to make a new Sri Lanka, like New Zealand has get rid of COVID-19 pandemic. Hope the new Sri Lanka will have a new approach to business, new approach to society, and we will build a better Sri Lanka together. So with that, let me thank all of you all. Thank the wonderful participants who got involved through Facebook. And let me thank Pima for the wonderful organizing. So let me hand over back to Jailal and Densil from Pima. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you everyone for listening, and panelists for contributing with the ideas and time, and Professor for excellent moderation. Thank you everyone, and we wish you all the best with your future endeavors, and stay safe, be positive. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.